When discussing colonial life, it is important to remember that families were very large and it was the whole kit and caboodle. Okay, you may think of your family just being your mom, dad, your brother, your sister, but in colonial life, a family truly meant your grandparents, your aunt and uncles, your cousins, your stepchildren, your children. It meant the whole entire family, not just your immediate family. Most families during this time had between about 7 and 10 children. That is drastically different from today. And actually the U.S. average, we're almost averaging about 2 kids per family in today's society. The main reason for this was the small farming families. They needed help with the chores on the farm, as we have already learned about. Religious and cultural backgrounds greatly influenced the colonists' ideas about raising children. As we learned from the last video, it influenced how they were educated and how they were brought up. Unfortunately, nearly half of all the children died before they reached adulthood. Disease was the main killer of kids and teens, as well as adults, and this was especially present in the middle and southern colonies, where you had diseases such as malaria that would affect these populations. Adults often died fairly young as well, to some of the same things. We know that the medicine and the treatments were definitely not as good back in the colonial times as it is today. They did not have certain medications, they did not have certain procedures, and doctors sometimes truly did not know what was wrong with somebody. The technology was very non-advanced, and as you can see, many people suffered from this. The widows or widowers of adults, they would remarry fairly quickly. So when I talk about stepchildren, this is children that were brought in from other families in kind of remarriage situations. Not as many divorces as there are today. Families during this time also took care of one another very closely. They were very close. They helped one another, even if they were annoyed, as some of you may get with your siblings today. They knew that family was possibly the only thing that they had. When we talk about marriage, couples generally married in their early to mid-20s, and men greatly outnumbered the women in the colonies. Therefore, the women were almost guaranteed and assured to be married at some point in their lives, usually fairly early in their life as well. In order to achieve a higher class in society, it is almost exactly like it is today. So colonists, in order to kind of climb the chain in society, they had to make a lot of money. That would help them switch classes, get better houses, better clothing, better equipment, that sort of thing. It all surrounded around money. Here's an image that is going to greatly depict what maybe a colonial family would have looked like during this time. As you can see, the mother and father right here, and then you have a very large family, which kind of looks like chaos here. You have the kids grabbing on the mother trying to do the work, a kid's kind of taking some food in the background, and usually there was always a small child in the picture during this time. Another part we have to look at is leisure activities. Another important aspect of colonial life was the leisure activities, what the colonists did in their free time. During free time, many took advantage of town meetings, Sunday services, and talking to neighbors and friends. They enjoyed the social life just as much as we enjoy our social life today, just very differently. Many colonists combined work and play in order to get things done more quickly. You may see this typically with Amish communities, such things as they all get together to make barns and then have a gathering after that. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about combining work and play. One of these things was bees and frolics, and an example of this is if the community or town needed more farmland, they would gather everybody up and clear the wood in a nearby timber or forest. Like I kind of described with the Amish communities of today, these colonists also had house and barn gatherings in which the whole town or community would gather to build a house or build a barn, and then the women would make a bunch of food to have kind of a buffet, and then they would have dances and that sort of thing afterwards. The colonial children had very simple toys, including dolls, marbles, and tops. Some of these things you may have already seen. They also enjoyed many outdoors games, one of them being the game of tag. Adults also enjoyed several sports. One of these was kind of a version of bowling. Now, this is not the bowling that you would see in the bowling alleys today. This would be in an open green area, and they would have these kind of egg-shaped balls that they would roll and hit kind of homemade pins that they have made. Another game that they enjoyed was pool. Now, they didn't call it pool, but this was a billiards type game in which they had kind of those large marbles and sticks to hit them with. Another sport was hunting. They got together, they had community hunts, that sort of thing, and they also used that as a sport. So the biggest animal or the biggest antlers would be the prize. Fairs that you see today, they were also common in the colonies. Obviously not with kind of the technology that we have, but the gathering of food and socializing and that aspect was very prevalent in the colonies. Here is a depiction of maybe adults playing that billiards pool game like I described earlier. This was common for adults to do, especially in the large townhouses where they had town meetings and that sort of thing.